Om Namah Shivaya. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let's chant the Shanti mantra. We'll just do that in the first class of each day. So let me do the following, where I'll take each line and you kindly repeat after me. And then after we have finished doing it, I'll chant the whole thing together. And then you can either chant with me or just listen. So this is on page 211 of the booklet. So let's start with the first one. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shunuyam Devaha. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shunuyam Devaha. Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha. Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha. Sthirairangaistushtuvagassastanubhihi. Sthirairangaistushtuvagassastanubhihi. Vyashema devahitan yadayuhu. Vyashema devahitan yadayuhu. Swastina indro vridhashravaha. Swastina indro vridhashravaha. Swastina pusha vishvavedaha. Swastina pusha vishvavedaha. Swastina starkshyo arishtanemihi. Swastina starkshyo arishtanemihi. Swastino brihaspatir dadhatu. Ino brihaspatir dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let me just chant the whole thing. Om Bhadram Karnebhih Shunuyam Devaha. Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha. Sthirairangaistushtuvagunsastanubhihi. Vyashema devahitan yadayuhu. Swastina indro vridhashravaha. Swastina pusha vishvavedaha. Swastina starksho arishtanemihi. Swastino brihaspatir dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So if you recall, the very first major point I had made for us to make a note of is the essence of Advaita Vedanta. Or you can take out the epithet Advaita and just say Vedanta, because Vedanta is Advaita Vedanta. So the basic fact about what characterizes, exactly if someone were to just casually, if you were to have a casual conversation with someone and say, what are you studying? And you will say, I'm studying Vedanta. And they'll say, what is the essence of it? This is the essence of it. The essence of it is that I am not seeing things the way I should, and as a result of that, I'm making a big mistake and suffering because of that. This is the essence of Vedanta. All dukkha, all problems that we impose on ourselves is due to a mistake, ajnanam, ignorance. And I think I would say substitute the word mistake. Because when you say ajnanam and you say those are all very sophisticated words that we don't quite understand. Mistake is easy. It's a mistake. I take something but don't take it the way it is, I mistake it. This is the essence of Vedanta. And the best example of this is the rope snake. That if you don't take the rope to be a rope, for whatever reason, that can be done later on. But the fact of it is that if you don't take the rope as it is, and you take it to be something else, see, if you take it to be anything else, that also is not correct. But you can take it to be something which is non-threatening. Like, for example, a garland. It is really a rope, but you take it to be a garland. That's also a mistake, but it's not a very damaging mistake, because so what? It doesn't make any difference. Or you can take it to be a garden hose, or maybe some kind of a drawing somebody has made. None of that is really damaging. But what happens is, if you take it to be a snake, that's a different matter altogether. Then you are in trouble. And that is a mistake which is very damaging, because it creates a certain emotion in you which is disturbing. Fear, anxiousness, how are we going to get rid of it? All kinds of things happen. Here, in the Shankara Bhashya, Adi Shankar's very important Bhashya on Brahma Sutra. This is called Sambandha Bhashya, not Sambandha Bhashya, it's called Adhyasa Bhashya, Adhyasa Bhashya. Adhyasa means a mistake. Okay? So in the Adhyasa Bhashya, Adi Shankara does a Mimamsa. Mimamsa means a very detailed analysis. I've already introduced that word to you before. So please remember that. Mimamsa. Mimamsa means a very thorough analysis. Not casual, not just saying, oh, it's a mistake and so on, but how is the mistake taken place? How does it create in you a fear? All of that is done in a very detailed manner by Adi Shankara in the Adhyasa Bhashya. So in doing so, what the point I wanted to make, it's a huge one. It'll take several classes just to go over the Adhyasa Bhashya. Just to on the side, recently, just in the last 3 or 4 months, this is how Ishvara works. You remember, some of you, that I had a live satsang with some of you. Remember that? This was 3 or 4 months ago. Some of you were there. And so we had a meeting of people that had about 30, 40 people. In that meeting, I met a very old student of mine that I had not seen for about 10, 12 years. And his name is Prasad, and he's from Karnataka. And he was a student of mine, and we used to bring him to the ashram here, and about 15, 20 years ago. And I had not seen him for quite a while. But it was so interesting that he just came to renew. Wonderful person. So in talking to him, and I says, what have you been doing? And what kind of, who are you? Are you studying? He says, yes, very much so. I'm in touch with Vedanta and so on. So I says, what kind of things? He says, there's one Swami Akhandananda, and I listened to his talks on Brahma Sutra. I says, how do you know Brahma? How do you know Akhandananda? I thought you were from Karnataka, you don't know any Hindi. He says, I follow enough to understand. And he says, a friend of mine told me about him, and he says, a fascinating thing. So I decided I have never really listened to Swami Akhandananda. But I decided I'm going to now investigate it. So this is about 2-3 months ago, very recent. And so I started listening to his talks. And these talks are available on YouTube. And the quality is not that good. You have to really strain. And so sometimes when I walk, I just put the headphones on and I try to listen to it. And there are, I believe, 68 talks that cover the entire Brahma Sutra. And so I started listening to it. In the meantime, I had gotten the Brahma Sutra 3 volumes book form from Swami Akhandananda also. So I started reading that also. Listening and reading, both of them. And I've gone through maybe a 10th of it so far. That covers the Adhyasa Bhashya. And the Adhyasa Bhashya is remarkable. So there the Mimamsa is being done about the rope snake mistake. Beautiful. So just listen to this. Excuse me. What he said was, how do you take a rope to be a snake? Let's analyze it. Can a child that has never seen a snake take a rope to be a snake? Even if the child doesn't really make a mistake anyway, but supposing it does, will it ever take a rope to be a snake if he has never seen a snake before? No. The only reason that you mistake a rope to be a snake is because you've had some experiences with the snake. And he makes another very important point, really, really beautiful. He says that the snake that you remember doesn't have to be a real one. Doesn't have to be a real one. Like, for instance, you can see a movie regarding a snake. I'm sure there are so many movies about a snake. If you are from that part of the world where you have actually experienced a snake, and I think we all have, at least I have, then the memory of a snake is very real. Memory of a real snake is real. But it doesn't have to be. It can be a fake snake that you have seen on some kind of a movie. Could even be a rubber snake that your parents might have shown you. So this is one point. But the second point is, you cannot make a mistake until you've had a previous experience of the thing that you are mistaking it for. This is the important point. This is the important point of the Mimamsa. So what that means is, this is an interesting thing. I often find people asking, do you believe in reincarnation? What is the proof about life after death? This is a fascinating thing, I tell you. It's just amazing. There is a gentleman, a Sikh gentleman. His name is Mr. Narinder Kapani. You can look him up on YouTube. He was a very famous scientist from India who had done work on some kind of I forget exactly what he had done, but he was so long before the modern Indian scientists and engineers and technocrats and so on. I'm talking about 40, 50 years ago. He became very famous in India. And one time we had just moved into California. I'm just telling you how famous he was. Some government officials wanted to meet him. And so they wrote to me. So I actually found out where to meet with him. And all these government officials were all in awe of this Sikh gentleman, Narinder Kapani. Anyway, I'm just giving you a story behind it. It has nothing to do. Recently, in the last 10 years, I have a friend, Sabir Bhatia, who was married, and Pami and I gave a party to friends of Sabir Bhatia at our home. And one of his friends was Narinder Kapani. So when he came to our home, he asked me, what do you do? So I was telling him that, I'm now retiring and I'm teaching Vedanta. So he says, oh, wonderful, I want to talk to you. Can we have a lunch together sometime? I said, sure, absolutely. So in Palo Alto, we had lunch. This is about 15 years ago. We had lunch together. And I was very honored to talk to him. He was a great gentleman, and he was, I think 80 or so, about 15 years ago. He was old by that time. But anyway, we had a wonderful talk. In the talk, so Sikhism is an offshoot of Hinduism. It's basically Hinduism, and what they've done is they've taken all the caste system out of it. They don't like the caste system. And they also have an influence of Islam of being Nirakara rather than Sakara. So they don't do Murti Puja, etc. But anyway, that is Sikhism. So what I wanted to say was it is basically Hinduism. So I had a lot of respect for that and so on. So he had this lunch with me, and he said, I wanted to ask you a question. You are an engineer. You are a scientist. You will understand my question. And you are also studying Vedanta. So I said, yes, I am. That's true. He says, do you believe in reincarnation? I was really taken aback by that question. So I said, sir, yes. He was very disappointed. He says, there is no evidence. It cannot be proven. And you are believing in it. I am very disappointed in you. I tell you, it was an astonishing lunch. Astonishing. Here is a man who has accomplished so much, and he's a practicing Sikh, which means he's a practical Hindu. And he has such distrust about the basic facts about it. Incredible. So, and I was very sorry that I disappointed him. because he was hoping that I'll come up with something with the, to agree with his strange viewpoint. This is just amazing. The whole thing depends upon continuity. There is no discontinuity anywhere. We were never born. We've always been around, taking different forms. This is why in the Mimamsa of Adi Shankara, you cannot make a mistake unless you've had some previous experience of your life. What that means is this: one mistake carries over to the next one. That mistake carries over to the next one. It is just a continuity of mistake after mistake after mistake. And that cannot happen unless you had some previous memory of something. So anyway, so this is the... and then once you start looking at the whole picture, you see how these samskaras, vasanas, just bleed over to the next one. As we were discussing earlier in yesterday's satsang also, that all that happens is there is a continuity of your previous experiences and modified by your karmas a little bit, as we were discussing in the meditation today. You modify what kind of a hotel you're going to stay in the next life. That's all. Just like, for example, even in this life, within a life, if you stay in a hotel that really was not, hotel meaning a long, one of those long stay places, not just a one night. If you stay in a long stay hotel and you don't like it, then you say, I need to get a better one. You have to earn more money, spend more money, and you can stay in a better hotel. This is exactly how what is happening. You get better karmas, and then instead of an animal body, you get a human body. And you continue with karmas, you get even better human body. It's interesting, I sometimes reflect upon that I'm very happy that I have a human body, but I'm unhappy that I was born with so many diseases. I was so asthmatic, I almost died many times early in my career. So I must have done some things to get a defective body. But it's functioning. I'm over 80 years old. I'm still... So it's a mixture. Some good, some bad. This is what happens. Or you can have a body in which you become a devata. So all these are just different stays of the bodies from time to time. But it is all based on a continuity. You cannot just have a single life and then that's the end of it. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It makes all the sense if you connect all the dots and say, this is exactly what is happening. So anyway, one point is, the basic tenet of Advaita Vedanta is, I am making a mistake by taking myself to be the costume. I am not the costume, I am the indweller of the costume. I am an actor who is acting a role. I am not the role itself. This is the mistake. Okay. You remember I was telling you yesterday that there was one important thing that I wanted to convey, and then we got veered off and I never really completed that. So here is the point that I want to now complete, an important point. Given that our basic tenet is that I am making a mistake, the question is, what do I need to do to correct the mistake? So let's take that simplistic example of the rope and snake again. If a person has made a mistake that this is a snake rather than knowing that it's a rope, what does the person have to do? Some say meditate. Meditate. So he says, you made a mistake. It's not a snake, it's a rope. So just meditate, it's a rope. Meditate, it's a rope. And continue, and he says, nothing is happening, I still see a snake. No, but you're not doing enough meditation. What you need to do is to really specialize. I'm just telling you, really, I know some people, some very close people. They think meditation is the ultimate. The more you meditate, how many hours you meditate, and so on. So supposing this guy says, I still see a snake. So he's saying, you're not meditating enough. Is that going to solve anything? Then there is the yogic view, that you remove all thoughts from yourself. This is yoga, Patanjali yoga. Okay? That you just do yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara and all these ashtanga yoga. And what is it? Nirvikalpa. You know what nirvikalpa is? No thoughts in your mind whatsoever. No thoughts. Nirvikalpa. And the very last one is savikalpa, where you have some thoughts. And the last stage is nirvikalpa. No thoughts at all. Thoughtlessness is nirvana, is samadhi. In the case of rope and snake, if somebody gives an advice, just remove all thoughts from your mind. If the thought comes in rope, I'll just say, no, don't let it come. Don't let it come. But it comes. No, don't let it come. This is interesting. Anyway, let me finish it. Is that going to help? You keep on, one is meditating that it's, see the difference? One is meditating, this is a rope, this is a rope, this is a rope. Keep on meditating, this is a rope, this is a rope. But the thought of snake keeps on coming. So the meditation doesn't help. The second one is yoga, which says remove all thoughts, even of a rope. Just say there is nothing and just practice it. And he says, I'm finding it very hard. But you're not doing enough. You have to do more discipline. Remove all thoughts, it will go. Is that ever going to happen? This is what I just say. Swami Dayanandji had a very interesting example. He said, there was a king who was balding. And you find so many people, so many men, not people, men, who don't like being balding. They don't like to be bald. They lose the hair their knowledge of the hair and so on, and just don't like it. And so this was a very powerful king who had everything that he could. He could do any. But he was balding. And he was very upset at that. How I'm such a powerful king, and how can I cannot have cannot have hair? So he made a proclamation. He made a proclamation that, listen, I'm losing my hair very rapidly. If anybody that can help me, I have one daughter only. You can marry the daughter and you will become the next king after I'm gone. So this is the reward. To that degree I want to really be, I'm so upset about balding that I want to give you this big prize. You can marry my daughter. A lot of people came in and they say, rub this ointment and Ayurvedic things and I see advertisements of, you do this, you get more hair. So this has been going on for a long time. This is nothing new. This is forever. People became bald even 5,000 years ago. And so a lot of people came in and nothing worked. This guy walks in and he says, "Sir, this is a piece of cake for me. I didn't know that you had this problem. I know exactly how to solve this problem." So he said, "What, really?" He says, this is all mental. There's nothing to do with physicality. You have to meditate. You have to meditate. So he says, "Okay, I am ready to meditate. Can you teach me what do I need to do?" I said, "Sure. Here's what you do." So he gave him a list of 10 items to meditate on. And so those were, a dog with hair. He says, just concentrate on that. The dog with hair. Like those things, the things that have hair, very hairy things. So those 10 items. I think Swamiji might have even given me the list of the hairy things. But he says, anyway, he gave him the 10. And he says, just before he says, "Okay, is that it?" He says, yeah, that's what it is. By the way, at the very last minute as he was leaving, he says, there's a couple of things that you should not meditate on. One is an egg. So do not meditate on an egg. And the other one is a potato. Okay? These two things you should not meditate on. But if you can avoid meditating on those two things and just meditate on those other 10 things, I guarantee you within a month or two you will start, you see her. The person said, "Well, it's wonderful. I can do that. I can do that." We started doing it. And, he started looking at all these hairy dogs and so on. Then he said, "What was the thing that was there?" He said not to do. "Oh, the egg. Oh, no, I shouldn't do the egg." "What was the other one?" He said, "Potato." "Oh, no, I shouldn't do that." He says, "I made a mistake." So he called him up and he says, "I'm really following your meditation, but I made a mistake. Because you told me not to meditate on the potato and the egg, but I did it. So it's my fault. It's my fault. I'll correct it." He keeps on meditating and so on. Every time he meditates, the potato and the egg also comes along with him. So after a month or two, he said, "I completely believe it is my mistake, but I think you have given me the right formula. Please marry my daughter, and that's okay. But I cannot do it. It's all right. But your recipe is good. Recipe is good." This is our situation. So we are told, see, look at this. This is all humorous and so on, but look at the Look at the profundity of this. If the fundamental issue in my life is that I made a mistake, and I need to understand it. If you have some shraddha, if you have some you can do anything you want to. You can go to any spiritual practice and so on. But if you come to Advaita Vedanta, however you got here, I don't know. It's up to you, have to decide. But you are here. You need to understand what are we saying. And what Advaita is saying, what Shastra is saying. Advaita means the truth of the Vedas. It's what it is. If this is what it is saying, you need to understand what is it that it is saying. That it's a mistake. Okay, all right. If you understand this, it's a mistake. The question is, how do you eliminate the mistake? Some people might say, do a lot of pujas to Dakshinamurti. Doesn't really doesn't correct the mistake. Some people say, do yoga, do pranayama. That doesn't correct the mistake. Some people say, just do bhakti. This is bhakti. Doesn't correct the mistake. So, everything that you do, anything that you do does not correct the mistake. So what corrects the mistake? This is an important point for us to see. What corrects the mistake is thinking. Vichara. Vichara. And this is a point that gets lost in the whole process. Completely gets lost. Because there are so many other things that you need to do, and they all seem to make sense. Reading books, learning Sanskrit, doing meditation, doing puja, following gurus, all kinds of things. There is a long list of good things. It's very obvious that useless things like seeing silly movies, going around to Machu Picchu and stuff like that, that's not helpful at all. But even amongst things that are seemingly helpful, does that solve the problem? It doesn't. Then what solves the problem? So if you look at the sayings of the Mahatmas, what has really worked for them? Vichara. This is the fundamental part of Swami Dayanandaji's book. It says, you are the problem, you are the solution. That's also given in this, mentioned here in this book as well. That's the essence of it. Everything else is secondary. But to do vichara is what? What does that mean? There we have to resort to what the problem is. So we have seen that the problem is that of mistaking. This is the one thing. Then the question is, to correct the mistake, what is it that I need to do vichara? Okay, that's the next step. Here we saw that the gain of doing something is of one of two types, right? Apraptasya praptihi and praptasya prapti. Apraptasya praptihi means karma-based action, where jnanam is secondary, as we have seen. In order to go to achieve something, you have to do exactly how to do it, and then you have to do it. You have to do something. This is the apraptasya praptihi. But if you're looking for yourself, you are already here. It cannot be apraptasya praptihi. But I still don't find myself. You say that it's a mistake, that you should just understand yourself, as we will see in more detail. If you say that, then the question is, what do I need to do? So there it is said, because you are already praptaha, you are already acquired, you cannot be different from what you are. It can only be a mistake which can be corrected by knowledge, not by karma. All praptasya praptihi, the principal sadhana is jnanam, not karma. Now we have a different issue. We have a different issue. What does that mean? We have already proven that what helps is vichara only. We have already proven that, right? No amount of meditation, no amount of yoga, no amount of bhakti, study, vichara is what needs to be done. And the question is, how do I do vichara? Through jnanam, through knowledge, by understanding that I am already what I am seeking. I am what I am seeking. This is the very funny part. So if that is the case, jnanam becomes the most important thing. Now we have to analyze, doing the mimamsa about what is jnanam, how do I acquire jnanam. So there, what is said is, now we are ready to launch the text in a few minutes. What is said is that jnanam means knowledge has one requirement. And that means ability to know. What is called adhikaritvam, qualification to know. And it's very obvious, we all know this, that a child cannot know more than just a few toys here and there. Mathematics, physics, forget it. Child cannot know this. How does it know it? By improving its ability to understand. Its mind has to acquire data. Its mind has to acquire the ability to theorize, to do subtle things slowly. It's really just so funny, really, if you say, when you see these kids, they cannot even do simple arithmetic. And there is nothing bad, it's just the way the mind is to be developed. Slowly you have to say, this is 1, this is 2, this is 5, you take out 3, only 2 are left. All those kinds of things are slowly taught. Algebra, high school. And so then the ability to, if you and I walk into quantum mechanics class at Berkeley, you'd be lost about, this has happened to me actually, it's very interesting, this is what reminded me. So I was in Berkeley doing my master's degree, and I was almost ready to graduate, probably another semester left. So my advisor, Dr. Wartenberg, said, hey, I have an interesting project if you want to take it on. So I said, sure, tell me about it. He says that's going to delay your graduation by 3 months. But I said, fine, I'd look into that, because I was getting some teaching assistantship and I had enough money to support myself. I didn't have to bother my parents. So he says, this is actually a very good opportunity. There is a Nobel Prize winner by the name of Dr. Donald Glaser, Glaser. You can look at him up. He is the inventor of bubble chamber of physics. I don't understand what it is. And he says that he wants some computing help for pattern recognition. And he needs a graduate student to help him do that. Do you want to be that? I said, sure. So he says, okay, come with me, I'll introduce you to Dr. Glaser. So I walk in, and this guy is sitting there. And he says, oh, you wanted a graduate student? Here it is. This is Vijay Kapoor. He's studying computer science. So he says, oh, good. So he says, okay, we'll begin. I'll tell you about what I need to do, and we'll have a meeting. In the meantime, I decided I'm just going to attend some of his classes, because he was a physics teacher, and some classes he was teaching. So I said, I'm very fortunate, because I looked up and he says he really is a Nobel Prize winner. In fact, there's only one very funny thing, I'll just say this. In the summer of 1964, I had a job at the Lawrence Radiation Lab as a lab technician. And so my boss one day said, let's have lunch together. So I said, sure, in the cafeteria. So I went with him to the cafeteria. And as we were carrying the trays and so on, he says, look over there. You see that table with some gentlemen sitting there? I said, yes. He says, count them. So I counted them. I think there were 7. So I said, there's 7. He says, do you know something? All of them have won Nobel Prizes. And they all sit together. I didn't have my cell phone at that time. I would have immediately taken one. But that image remains in my mind. And Dr. Glaser also was one of them. Anyway, I started attending his classes, just not because of this project that I'm on. That was a much simpler project. And actually, I didn't even complete it, because I made some progress in it, but I couldn't complete it before so they said, okay, that's fine, that's all right, you've made some progress. But I attended his classes. Believe me, I could not understand 1% of what they were talking about. Not 1%. It was just like, and the students were talking back and forth. But what about this? He says, no, that's not the way it is. It is this. And I'm going back and forth, and I have no idea what they're talking about. And I was 23 years old, and but I'm not prepared. This is our situation. This is our situation. Jnanam requires the right preparation. And these guys who were sitting there, they were not just suddenly got there. They had spent a lot of time through undergraduate, through graduate school, specialization, slowly one thing at the other. And at that time they were ability to look at particles and waves as they were doing is amazing. I remember Swami Dayananji saying one time, he says, suppose you invite Einstein to your college graduation. All these college graduations are taking place, so you have a main speaker. Supposing you invite Einstein, and then you ask somebody to introduce Einstein. So supposing there is a graduate student, even from Dr. Donald Glaser, and so this graduate student is supposed to introduce. So he says, I am very honored to introduce Mr. Dr. Such and such, and he has done a great amount of work. We are extremely happy, and then so on and so forth. What else is he going to do? He cannot really understand what E is equal to mc squared is. But supposing the speaker is another Nobel Prize winner who understands the whole thing. If he were to introduce Einstein, and he knows what Einstein has done, his mind. Do you know what? This one interesting fact. When Einstein died, I was actually very fascinated by his story. So I read his entire biography one time. And I really began to understand what Einstein was talking about to a little bit of a degree. And just a little bit of a degree that I saw was amazing. But if this Nobel Prize winner was to introduce Einstein, it will be a different introduction. He will say, my God, this discovery that you made, that discovery that you made, because he understands what it is. Very similar case is there. We cannot understand the subtlety of Ishvara's presence in our life. Cannot understand. He's there, right here. As you and I, participating. This is Ishvara. But we don't see it. Because we don't understand the subtlety of it. But we will. We will one day. If we keep our preparation. That preparation is already hinted in the first verse of this. So let's read it. First verse. I think I know what I decided. I will just, if you want to repeat after me, you could, but I don't know. Maybe you should. You can repeat after me. This is on page 32. And there is a new version of the book that has slightly different pages. So please do that. Anyway, this is the first verse. And it's also given in the page 1 to 11 as well. So let's just do that. Om Atha Ashwalayano Bhagavantam. Om Atha Ashwayalano Bhagavantam. Parameshtinam upasametyovacha Upasametyovacha adhihi bhagavo brahma vidyam varishtam sada satbhihi sevyamananam nigudham yaya chiratma sarva papam vapohya parat param purusham yati vidwan. So, Om athashvalaya no bhagavantam parameshtinam upasase. I'm having difficulty with that. Upapasametya uvacha adihi bhagavo brahma vidyam varishtam sada sadbihi sevyamananam nigudham yaya achirat sarva papam vipohya parat param purusham yati vidwan. In fact, let's do number 2 also at the same time. I think we have a couple of minutes. Then I will briefly explain both of them. I don't know where all these pages. I'm just going to go to number 211. Tasmai sahovacha pitamahascha Shraddha Bhakti Dhyana Yogat Avehi. So, Atha Ashvayalanaha, so a very evolved teacher. This is kind of like a very advanced graduate student. So Ashvayalana is known in the that he was a very great rishi, and so just like you have in any field. So I'm just taking up physics here. You have a very advanced graduate student, or in medicine, for example. This happens the same thing. It's amazing how now that the body is being segmented into small parts. There is a separate podiatrist and there's a separate guy for ankles, separate guy for legs. There's so much specialization that happens. Same thing in psychology, there is so much specialization, and it all requires the preparation for knowledge. And if these doctors, you come in and they just take one look at it and says, I know what's wrong with you. Just amazing, because they have seen so much, their thinking is so evolved. So this guy was already a very advanced person. So he goes to Pitamaha, who's the original. Anyway, we won't go into all of those details. I want to keep it conceptual. But anyway, he goes to the father of the whole creation and said, Sir, I need to learn Atma Vidya because I know a lot, but I am not happy yet. Not happy yet. This is very famous about Narada. Narada was a Renaissance person who knew so much mathematics, physics, poetry, grammar, languages. And so he approaches Sanat Kumara one time, very similar to this, and said, Sir, I need Brahma Vidya. So it just shows you that Brahma Vidya that we are studying is not an ordinary thing. We have to bring ourselves up to understand it. It's there. Freedom is there already. You are free. But we don't understand it. We make a mistake about it. And to correct that mistake, we need vichara. To correct the vichara, to conduct the vichara, we need jnanam. And to get the jnanam, we have to be qualified for it. So in the second verse, which we will continue in the next class, he has given the fundamentals of what the preparation means. He says, Shraddha Bhakti Dhyana Yoga Tavehi. So we will expand on that point in the next class when we meet at 11 o'clock. So this is all part of the continuum. Praptasya praptihi means that I need to know something that I already have, but I cannot know it until I'm qualified to know it. This is the sequence of Advaita Vedanta. So we'll continue with that. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.